my name is Kristen Judd. I am the fifth grade teacher at Vail Virtual K through 8, and I'm very excited today to discuss the Global Collaborator standard. The Global Collaborator standard says that students use digital tools to broaden their perspectives and enrich their learning by collaborating with others and working effectively in teams locally and globally. When we had this conference back in August, our objective was that teachers will be able to identify at least one way to incorporate the Global Collaborator standard into any essential standard. And what was pretty amazing is that most everybody came away with not just one, but several ideas of how they could incorporate this standard into their everyday teaching. And one of the great things about it is that it doesn't add more work to you as a teacher, but it doesn't just enhance, but sometimes it can make your job even easier. And it makes it so much funner and interesting and engaging for your students as well. Okay. The agenda we had for that day and for today is the why and how of global collaboration. We're going to explore the standard. We did some workshopping and brainstorming how we can make these happen in our classrooms. I'm going to steal some of the ideas from some of the teachers that came up with some really amazing ideas. And we also had a discussion and questions. Again, a lot of these ideas I took from teachers. I stole them. The why of global collaboration. It's always important to know as teachers and students, why do we do something? Why is this even important? Marina Rodriguez said that collaboration is essential in our classrooms because it is inherent in the nature of how work is accomplished in our civic and workforce lives. 50 years ago, much work was accomplished by individuals working alone, but not today. Much of all significant work is accomplished in teams, and in many cases, global teams. What's interesting about this, though, is that collaboration doesn't come naturally to anybody. Students, humans, we need to practice this important skill. Now, we're going to have some examples of what global collaboration can look like in your classroom. A lot of these ideas have fifth grade standards. That's just because I'm teaching fifth grade, and these are just some of the ideas that I've used. But it was really cool to see how many teachers with how many different grade levels thought of ideas that they could use for theirs as well. One of the standards that we teach in the fifth grade is writing sentences that flow together and sound natural when read aloud. The ed tech standard that I thought, hey, let's use this with it, was that students in collaboration with an educator take on various assigned team roles, contributing their knowledge of technology and content to complete a project or solve a problem. So what I decided to do here was to take a Google Jamboard. I made sentences with each word on a Post-it note. I created teams for my students to be in, and they were all assigned a page of the Jamboard. Every page was identical. All of these sentences were scrambled. There are 5 sentences. The students had to work together, moving these words and phrases into correct sentences that sounded natural and flowed together when read aloud. And so they would really have to work together and feed ideas off of each other. Or is this right? I'm not sure. I think that's wrong. Let's check here. And on this next slide, we're going to see kind of what they came up with before we all came back together. This is what students in each group came up with. They were able to do the standard. This was a lot funner than giving them a worksheet and having them work alone. It was also super fun for them because they were able to use their technology tools that they already know and use so much every day, but they were able to work together. For those students that struggle a little bit, it was nice to be able to put them into groups where some were more knowledgeable on the content and some were more knowledgeable on the tech. And as they came together, they were also able to teach each other. It which is one of the points of this standard in the first place. Now, when we talk about global standards, global collaborator, we think sometimes that it's all the way across the world, but it's literally anything that's just outside of yourself, anything that's outside of the student. It can be working in teams with other children in their classroom. It could be working classroom against classroom. It could be school working with another school. And in some cases, it really can be working with somebody across the globe. In this next standard, we have, example. This is a Q&A that we had with,
of course,
Rob Staple. Rob Staple was a friend from Canterbury, England. The standard was when we were talking about the American Revolution in 5th grade. I had a lot of questions from my students about how do the British feel about this? What is their perspective on this? Well, I thought, well, I could tell them. I thought we could Google it, or I could use this global standard. Students in collaboration with an educator use technology to connect with others, including peers, experts, and community members to explore different points of view on various topics. And they were so excited to be able to have a list of questions for him. And he was really good about not only answering the questions that they had, but engaging them with other questions that they had that didn't really have to do with the American Revolution. But it was so much more engaging and so much more interesting than anything that I could have pulled up on the internet or looked up for them or we found together. It actually came from a source, from the place that they were asking about. So that was also very interesting and very fun for our students. Another example of how we can work this global collaboration standard in science, we were learning about the phases of the moon. I can develop, revise, and use models based on evidence to construct explanations about the movement of Earth and Moon within our solar system. This goes back to the global collaboration standard of taking on various assigned team roles, contributing their knowledge of technology and content to complete a project or solve a problem. This moon phases animation, the students were needing to use their knowledge. I put them in groups of 2, and I tried to make it so that one was pretty knowledgeable about phases of the moon and one was a little more knowledgeable about the technology of creating these Google slide animations. Together, they were able to create these animations that were really, really interesting. And I think this is, again, using technology, working together. One of the things that's interesting about our school is we're not in a classroom. So all of our students are collaborating from their different locations, and they're able to make these really, really interesting projects together. And they do really well when given the opportunity. And they're so much more excited to share what they're doing, and they're excited to see what the other students are working on. So this is just another example of the global collaboration and how it's working in a classroom. Another example that we have is using Canva. Canva is a wonderful tool for global collaboration. I can see this being used in so many different ways. Obviously, in our classroom, we used, again, in group work, we were working on a reading standard of comparing and contrasting stories in the same genre. Well, we got a double bubble thinking map on Canva, and I created 2 maps. And I had 2 groups where I had students in each group that were working on the same one. So after they read these stories, they had to compare and contrast what was the same and what was different. And this is what one of the groups came up with. Using Canva, they were able to use pictures, they were able to use words, they were able to explain their thinking and compare and contrast these stories, which again works in perfectly with the standard, the essential standard that we were using for reading, but it also brings in that global collaboration standard of using technology. Another example we have is in social studies, where we're making and reading maps and graphs to represent changes in the United States. This one, I put the entire class on here. This could be done in different ways though. You could have teams, You could even have individuals, if you want, competing with other ones. You could have a race. But this one, I just put the entire class on this same Canva. And I said, you guys have 10 minutes to label this map. And so it added a sense of urgency, and they were all working together. And this is kind of how it ended up. As you can see, they were able to correctly label, I think for the most part, and they were able to start adding some decorations because they did this within 20 minutes. Every student was working on this. They were helping each other. Did I spell this correctly? You need to make sure that's capitalized. Yeah, it doesn't look like we got all of them capitalized, but they were working together. And you can see some of the comments in Canva. They're able to comment with each other, even though they can hear each other. We sure do need a flag. Well, we got one of the flags correct. Let's add some more style once done with the states. So they started before their 10 minutes was up, but then they ran out of time. So that is just another example again of how we can use this global collaboration standard. These are just some of the projects that I used in my classroom, but let's talk about your classroom and how you can get started. These are some of the resources that we have. If you click on this Canva presentation, you will be able to click on the links to get to these different websites. You can click on Arts and Culture Expeditions. These are virtual field trips where you're able to take your class outside of the classroom without actually having to leave the classroom. You're able to get outside opinions and ideas. You're going to be able to have experts talk to your students. They're going to be able to see things that they wouldn't normally be able to see. Another one is nasa.gov virtual field trips. These work in really well with some of your science standards. National Weather Service, same. Depending on if you have a weather standard that you're working on in science, that is wonderful. The Nat Geo Explorer classroom. Again, virtual field trips, and a lot of times you can get an expert to come and talk to you. You can schedule for them to come and talk to your class. Skype a Scientist is another wonderful one where you can schedule to have a scientist in any field. You can connect with them to come and speak to your classroom. The National Museum of Natural History, this is from the Smithsonian. Again, virtual field trips, you can have an expert come and talk to your classroom. Your class can ask them questions. And one of the great things also is this resource right here, Classroom Bridges, is kind of like a where you meet other teachers in other parts of the world or in other parts of the United States, and you can connect with them. One of the things we have to be careful with a little bit is, and I put a disclaimer down at the bottom, before using any website for collaboration, you want to check with your principal to see what their policy is. For example, if parent permission slips would be needed, or if privacy is going to be protected on these different websites. You want to check with your principal first. We did have a third grade teacher who said this would be really great for the standard of connecting with a teacher in different area of the world or the country using Classroom Bridges so that we can write a friendly letter to another class. A pen pal is something that other students thought about or other teachers thought about. So those are just some of the examples. There are so many more. If you do a Google search for virtual field trips, you will have endless possibilities that pop up. If you do a Google search for classroom experts in the classroom, you would be amazed at how many experts and scientists and people who are willing to come and speak virtually with your classroom. It's very, very exciting. Things that are possible for us now with these ed tech standards that were not possible even 5 years ago. And we have COVID to thank for a lot of that, but a lot of good things came out of it too. Some other resources that we have to use and some other ideas For global collaboration are Padlet. Now, some of these I am more familiar with than others, but they are here for you to check out because other teachers have had success with them as well. Kahoot. I think we've all heard about Kahoot. Along the same lines as Kahoot, we also have Gimkit and we have Blookit, and these are games that are competitive. They match up with the standards depending on what your standard is. You can create question sets, students can work with each other, classrooms can be competitive with other classrooms, you can really collaborate, and students really love these. And it's also a great way to check for understanding if you're a teacher and you want to know who's got this and who still needs help on it. These are really good ways to tell. Another teacher came up with the idea of pink cat games. That's one I'm not super familiar with, but you should check that out since some of the younger grades have a lot of success with that. Flipgrid is now Flip. That is where you are able to create a video board where you answer questions. EarthCam, we did have a teacher who said that depending on a picture, they were able to show and do a character analysis based on the picture. So using EarthCam tools like this. One that is also very exciting is Google Earth. A lot of times you might have a student who asks a question about geography or where is this, or um, what ocean or which continent or where is this place. Use Google Earth. They also have fun games on there. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? They will have some of those that you can play as a class, and they have to collaborate with each other and figure out where are we going to go, or what are all of these clues leading to. So there are so many possibilities. Again, before using any website, check with your principal. They're going to love me for that. A lot of questions. But there are so many tools that we can use for global collaboration. And the main idea is that students are using technology to not just work by themselves at their desk, but to collaborate with others, get ideas from others, having students give them feedback, having other students correct each other in a friendly and fun way. It's a way that we're able to connect with people in other areas of the world that we normally wouldn't be able to without using these standards. And again, these standards don't necessarily take away or add more to what you've already got on your plate, but it makes it so much easier for you. And it's really enjoyable, not just for your students, but also for you. And so I would hope that you would be able to look at these standards that you've been given for the Global Collaborator, and that you would be able to think of some ways, hopefully we've thought of a few today, that you would be able to incorporate them into your own classroom to make things easier for you and more enjoyable for your students. Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye.